Bryce Young has gotten some early positive reviews from Panthers minicamp, and this is huge for them as he's their key to their success in 2023. Since prime Cam Newton tailed off after the 2017 NFL season, the Panthers have really struggled to find much to celebrate. They haven't made the playoffs in 5 years, they haven't been bad enough to get themselves top picks in drafts, and the team frankly has just been tough to watch the past few years. But one thing that is clear, and we've seen it over the past couple of seasons, is although it's taken some time to get to this point, the Panthers have built a fairly nice core of young players by hitting on almost all of their premium picks. I've really shared the mindset that the reason for Carolina's struggles is largely due to the two most important things for a football team: the coach and the quarterback. And since Cam Newton and Ron Rivera, it's been a revolving door in those two areas, and I think that's where most of the dysfunction stems from. Perry Fewell coached a few games for the team in 2019, taking over for Ron Rivera, who had gotten fired. Then Matt Rule got hired to a massive contract to be the team's next head coach. He only lasted 38 games, which actually turned out to be a huge disaster. Steve Wilkes took over for him to close out the season last year. And quarterbacks is even worse. Taylor Heineke started a game for them. Kyle Allen started 13. Will Greer got a couple starts in the 2019 season. Then the team signed Teddy Bridgewater to a decent contract. They traded for Sam Darnold. They brought back Cam Newton. Then they traded for Baker Mayfield. PJ Walker took over, and then Sam Darnold closed out the season. So yeah, not great, but I have hope that they finally figured it out, because this offseason they finally took a different approach. Instead of hiring a young, inexperienced NFL head coach like Matt Rule and time again going after a veteran quarterback who hasn't really worked out in the league, they did what smart teams do and hired a super experienced head coach in Frank Reich and traded a ton of assets with the Chicago Bears to secure their quarterback of the future in Bryce Young. Now I want to start with Reich because he's really the captain of this ship now. I think Reich has proven over the course of his coaching career that he knows offense, he knows how to put together an effective offense, and he knows how to develop quarterbacks. In this day and age in the NFL where offense is by far the most important side of the ball, I like this hire by Carolina to get a guy in the building that knows what he's doing to help reset the culture of a team that hasn't been good in a while. And the staff he built, I have a lot of high hopes for as well. The quarterback coach, Josh McCown, I think is a guy to keep your eye on. He's seen as an up-and-coming star in the coaching ranks, and with all the experience he has from playing in the league, his advice to a young quarterback in Bryce Young, I think is going to be priceless. And then getting a Giro Evero, who's a Vic Fangio disciple and has experience running his own defense, I think also takes a lot of pressure off of Reich because he doesn't have to worry about that side of the ball. And lastly, the most under the radar hiring that I saw was getting Jim Caldwell to be an advisor for the team. He's just another person that's been around the block several times, and I think it's just brilliant to have him support your staff. But compared to some of the clown show coaching staffs that the Panthers have had in recent years, I can safely say that this is a massive upgrade. But now to who's really going to make or break Carolina's season next year. Bryce Young is the first young quarterback this team has had in about a decade now, so this is not familiar territory for this Panthers organization or their fan base. And I gotta be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of Bryce Young during the draft process. I made a couple of videos about him before the draft took place, and really my opinion on him and why I personally wouldn't draft him, especially with the top pick. There's no doubt from high school to college, he's been a fantastic player. He's been super productive. He's won a lot of games for both programs he's played at, but man, his size really does worry me. We've just never seen a player at this size drafted this high or even really be successful long term in the league. And I know people mention Kyler Murray, but Kyler is a good 225 pounds. He's built a lot differently than Bryce. He's got a lot more on him to absorb hits, whereas Bryce is super slender. I know there's been some recent pictures and videos of Bryce, and it looks like he bulked up a little bit, but at a point you can only do so much, and compared to the rest of the league, I think Bryce will always be viewed as a small player. But just because there hasn't been multiple good small players, and just because history shows that this won't work long term, it doesn't mean that it won't. The entire league laughed at Russell Wilson when he came into the league, and now he's on track to make the Hall of Fame. So I don't want to write off Bryce before he even takes his first NFL snap, but I do think it's fair to have concerns about him being able to take hits from D linemen week in and week out, and also consistently being able to throw over the middle of the field. Russ and Kyler have offenses built around their skill sets, so they aren't asked to do that a lot because it is hard for them to see over the line of scrimmage. I believe Bryce will have to run a similar offense, but Reich is smart enough to build that for him. And what gives me some optimism regarding Bryce Young's success in the league is his unique skill set for his size. He's got tremendous pocket presence. He avoided a lot of sacks and brutal hits at Alabama with just his ability to escape the pocket, maneuver around defenders, so that should help him be able to stay on his feet. His mental processing is seen as a strength. He's got good anticipation and accuracy to pair with that, so there's definitely things to like and point to as reasons why he'll be successful. And so far this offseason for the Panthers, from all accounts, he's looked really strong. There's been a lot of practice footage released where you see his accuracy and touch on display, whether that was in warm-up throws, 11 on 11s, or even 7 on 7. Multiple teammates and coaches have already come out and stated how impressive he is on the mental side of things and how he's already stepped into the leadership role. Jonathan Mingo, the Panthers' second-round pick rookie wide receiver, said about Bryce Young, just knowing the ins and outs of the offense, knowing where everybody is supposed to be, knowing the whole playbook, just having great footwork, knowing his reads. You could tell he knew what he was doing. He's just a great leader by the way he carries himself on and off the field. Brian Burns, who I think is currently the best player on the entire Panthers roster, said it's hard not to like the kid. He's put quite a stamp on the locker room. He walks around with this kind of humble, but I know I'm the shit type of swag. He's got it, but he's humble with it. Frank Reich said Bryce made a great impression. Mentally and physically, he looked the part in every way. We have the sense he's willing to do whatever it takes. And I could go on and on and on with these quotes regarding how impressive Bryce has looked so far early this summer, but you get the idea. He's definitely shown out in Carolina. But now it's about how Bryce carries this momentum into training camp and into the season. I think defensively, the Panthers are going to be really good again. The last few years, that unit is what's really anchored the team and allowed them to be at least competitive. You have multiple blue chip players with Brian Burns, Derek Brown, JC Horn, Frankie Louvu, and Jeremy Chin. You pair those players with a new defensive coordinator who has a lot of experience. He knows how to put players in the best position to be successful, and I think this defense is again going to be good. Offensively, I'm a little bit more concerned just because of how weak the skill position players are for the team, but it's not really their fault though. I mean, they traded away their two best offensive pieces just this past year. Christian McCaffrey, they didn't really want him to be a part of the rebuild. They wanted him to go to a contender. I do think that was the right decision to not pay a running back over $10 million a year as they were approaching a reset as a team. And then of course, DJ Moore, he emerged as a star, but to be able to trade up and get Bryce Young to begin with, they had to let him go. And that sucks, but it's the cost of doing business. So they brought in some veterans, Adam Thielen, DJ Chark. I don't think those guys are world beaters, but I do think for the near future that they can get the job done. You still have some youth as well in the wide receiver room with Jonathan Mingo, who they just drafted, Terrence Marshall Jr., and Laviska Shenault. So maybe if one or two of those guys ascend next season, I'll feel a little bit better about who Bryce Young has to throw the ball to. But up front, their offensive line, I'm actually a pretty big fan of. They got a really nice tackle duo of Taylor Moton at right tackle and then Akeem Ekwonu at left tackle. You have a couple pieces on the interior that are pretty solid with Bradley Bozeman at center and Austin Corbett at right guard. They brought in Miles Sanders from the Eagles, who had a career year last year. I think he's a solid running back. And then Hayden Hurst, who had a good season with the Bengals last year as well. So although I don't see those guys as top of their position players or guys that will keep defensive coordinators up late at night because they have to go against them, I think they're solid enough to support a rookie quarterback, and that's all the Panthers really need right now, as I don't think they're pushing for a Super Bowl just yet. But however, I do think this team has a chance to compete for a playoff spot in 2023. The NFC is wide open outside of the Eagles, Cowboys, and 49ers. There's not many great solidified teams. The NFC South itself is pretty weak. The Saints should be better with Derek Carr, but their coach isn't great. They still have a lot of questions. The Falcons starting quarterback is Desmond Ridder. It's more likely than not that he's not going to be super good, so they're not going to be great either. And the Bucs are like one of the worst teams in the league, so there's not much to worry about with them either. So if Bryce Young keeps improving through training camp and is just competent during the season, I don't think it's a bold prediction to say that the Panthers can make the playoffs next year. But let me know what you think about Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers and how many games you think they're going to win next year. Also, let me know how many touchdowns you think Bryce Young will throw for as a rookie. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. And as always, thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.